Hey y'all, welcome back to the She Speaks in Color podcast. My name is Leah Renee, and I am so excited that you're here. Today I wanted to share just my experience and some reflections that I had around what it means to live. And this comes up from a class that I'm currently taking, and we were invited to do some experientials that had us reflect on what long life is and what it means to have a fulfilling life. Not only a life that is physically well, but also spiritually and mentally well. So I can't wait to share what I've learned and have been practicing. I think these are some great points that have really opened my eyes to what living a life of vibrancy is, and I can't wait to share it with you. And so the first thing I wanted to talk about was friendships and connections. The second thing is quiet time and solitude. The third is movement and exercise. The fourth is travel. And the last is an unexpected lesson that just kind of reminded me of why I create art. So let's get into it. All right, so if you're new here, I talk about this integration of bridging art, my Christian faith, and mental health. And, it really all works together. And the way that my life is set up, I can see it no other way sometimes. Sometimes one of the domains may be more prominent in my life than the other, but I'd say right now I'm definitely experiencing the integration. And so the first thing I wanted to talk about was friendships. Friendships is a big topic that has not always been, like friendships, friendliness, friendship topic, being friendly. I don't know. But I guess maybe for me, it hasn't always been like, ooh, let's talk about friendships. I don't know what your experiences have been with friendships or connecting with other people, but lately I've realized that friendships create meaning to life. And I talked about this a little bit in my last podcast about how relationships also bring life, and when they're healthy relationships, they can bring long life. And so some of the things that I noticed, especially after the grief, divorce, being a mom, being back in school and, working, friendships have moved around, like closeness, proximity, consistency, how much to share, what not to share. All of that has shifted. And I've been learning that the meaningful connection matters as long as it's something that edifies me. And so I had a conversation with a friend about is friendship based on consistency? What is it based in? And I really had to just sit and reflect on what did I want to have in a friend and what was friendship to me. And it just brought up so many different things. I was just kind of stuck in this state of, I don't know what I want in a friendship. So I've been reflecting on that and just thinking about what my values are and what I hold to be true. And when I know that I can trust someone, when I feel loved, appreciated, there's reciprocity in the relationship, laughing, being understood and understanding them. I think when we talk about friendship, there's this underlying feeling of safety where somebody has your back and you have theirs. And as this relates to living a long life, I feel like friendships carry this lifeline in your life, whether it's been a friend that you've had since childhood, whether it's been an adult friend or a friend that you met in a group that you're in or a community you're in. I believe that they all carry some sort of lifeline that helps you be who you are on a regular basis. And that's what I noticed as I've been starting to cultivate friendships, new, old, and being more intentional about it. It has really shown me how much valuable the connection has been to how I'm able to show up. For example, if I'm having a conversation with somebody or I'm reaching out to schedule a time to hang out, there's something that happens when you're in this proximity with someone where you're having a dialogue about, hey, how are you, what's been going on, what's new, what are you struggling with, how can I help you. I've found that nourishes my soul, unlike being just by myself and saying, oh well, I'll just hang out by myself. Yes, I do need my quiet time, which I'll get into, but I think connecting with people who support you, people who love you, who you feel the love and feel the support from, that's what brings life. That's what brings love. That's what brings connection and ultimately vibrancy to your life. The next thing I wanted to talk about was the quiet time, the solitude. I think naturally I'm more introverted. I won't say I think, I know I am. And when I have, that time to reset and recharge, I can come back in a social setting energized, ready to talk, ready to have a great conversation. And, I realized after having the time, after socializing and connecting with other people, that the quiet time in solitude was just as valuable and important and essential. And it really just allowed me to feel my body, to recenter myself. And I noticed how much my body needs to just be still, do nothing, and have as little input as possible. And sometimes I just need a day to do nothing but just to rest and chill. Maybe it's watching my favorite TV show, not necessarily doing laundry, but just like my body is literally resting. And I realized the impact of the rest the next day and how I'm able to, tend to my responsibilities around the house and work and as a mom. And so that quiet time, that solitude, it's something that I need. And that is what gives me life as well. It's rest. The third thing I wanted to talk about was exercise. I've been challenging myself to I don't want to say like what am I trying to say? I've been challenging myself to exercise at least 3 times a week for 30 minutes. And I've done so successfully for 3 weeks now. And when I was thinking about caring for my body, there's been moments in the past where I've done like 30-day challenges or signed up for, some sort of program. And after it's done, I'm done. And so I was just tired of doing something based off of an end result. And this time I really was looking at my well-being, how I was feeling in my body, how my body was telling me that it needed more exercise or water or sleep. And I said, you know what? The only way that I'm going to experience a life of longevity and a life of fullness, a life of energy, is if I actually choose to make a change in my life by moving my body, even when I don't want to. So I have been successful at it, and I'm so proud of myself. And I think that's a big part of living this life of energy and vibrancy, is being intentional about how you're going to move your body throughout the day and even throughout the week, and how you talk to yourself when you don't do what you're supposed to do. And that's one thing that I noticed was I'm learning to be the friend to myself when naturally I would say, oh man, you missed it, or you should have did this, you could have did this. But no, I say, you know what, Leah, you did a great job. You put yourself out there, you pushed past the fatigue, or you did 2 extra dumbbell curls instead of stopping where you normally would. And so I'm like really adopting this mindset of this positive coach within me. And, it's different this time around because I've chosen to do this on my own, not because of being motivated by someone else or joining a challenge. It's really been me noticing that, okay, my body is actually getting a little bit older, and I want to be able to show up for the people that I'm called to, show for myself, show for my family, and why not start now? So that was another thing that helped me, just to realize that living a life of vibrancy is more than what we know. And I can say now, I feel like I'm like mentally stronger. I feel like I'm learning my body and what it needs a little bit more. So it's like a little bit closer awareness of what's happening, whether just going throughout the day and just eating stuff. Now I'm like, okay, I need 30 grams of protein. I need fiber. Should I eat this? Nope. Let me make sure I plan my meal for the next day. So I think the longevity is also about learning your habits, the ones that work for you and the ones that work against you, and adapting. It's this constant adaptation to what works. So it's like you're going towards while you're shredding things that don't matter, so you can feel lighter and lighter and stronger. That's just how I see it in my head. The fourth thing is traveling. I've been doing more traveling these days, and I feel like that gives me life. While it can be tiring, it gives me life in a way that makes me see more than what I've known. And by that I mean my environment, culture, ways to navigate, and just being curious. And so it just reminds me that there's still more to discover than what's right in front of me and what I see all the time on a daily, weekly basis. It's just those small adventures that bring excitement and help me to notice that there's so many ways, there's so many opportunities, there's so many different types of people that I can connect with. And it just reminds me to have an open mind. And so I think another part of remaining vibrant and alive is also remaining curious, because you never know what it can lead you towards, who it could lead you towards. So I would say, yeah, stay curious. And then the last part of my reflection is the unexpected lesson I was telling you about. So I hadn't been painting for a while, as an artist. I feel like there's these ebbs and flows of creativity burst, of, inspiration, and feeling like you can create a masterpiece. And, sometimes I wrestle with that idea of creating a painting to just be the painting versus painting as process. And so I kind of move in between both of those realms as an artist and art therapist. But what I think is so beautiful is that during my creation process, there's this journey that I go on with myself that allows me to end at this place of like solution, or a new theme will come up that wasn't there before. And this last painting that I was working through, I hadn't touched it in some weeks. It just had been sitting and staring at me, saying hello, and I would say hello, I'll get to you soon, and never did. And it wasn't until finally, after being with a friend and talking about art, I realized, yeah, I haven't got to that painting that I've been wanting to get to. And just even talking about that now, that connection with that person brought me to returning to my art, which also gives me life. And what surprised me was before I started painting, I was like looking for something to like fill me, to give me life, to give me energy. And as a Christian, there's many different forms of communing with God, with practicing a way to, develop and cultivate your relationship with Him, whether it's, being in your word, studying scripture, exercising your faith through being obedient in things that you believe He's telling you to do. The work that you do is like this, it's the life that you live, is pretty much your worship. And for me, I was finding myself like questioning my actions and questioning the time, questioning, what was I to do next? And I had noticed this distance that I had between feeling the presence of God and feeling like fulfilled. And so I finally got back to my canvas, had everything set up, and I said, you know what, I'm just going to paint and let's move through this. And so I don't know if you're familiar with painting, painting figures, but there's so many layers that go into putting color and creating shadows and light and form on a face. And it can be very emotional. The process of painting can be frustrating, it can be aggravating, but there's also this patience that you must have when you paint, because there's no immediate gratification when you're trying to come to this end painting. Like, you have to wait for the paint to dry. You have to mix the colors together. You test the colors. Oh, that's not working. Try something again. So it's this dance of a process that you have to like immerse yourself in so that you can flow and be in it for a while, so you kind of get used to it. And I hadn't been in my flow in a while, so I felt like, man, I'm rusty at this. I don't know if I'm going to finish this. But I kept moving through the discomfort, moving through the negative thoughts I was having. And before I knew it, I was painting for like 3 hours. And the painting slowly started to shift toward this image that I could now see shape and form. And I felt so proud of myself for sticking with it. And in that moment, that was when I just stopped and just stared at the painting, and immediately that's when I just felt like the Holy Spirit was speaking to me, and it was me reconnecting to myself, but reconnecting back to Him. And immediately I was just like flooded with these scriptures about, those who hunger and thirst after righteousness shall be filled, and, basking in God's presence and being under the shadow of His wings and finding freedom in His presence and being strengthened in His presence, and nothing else matters when you're there. And that's exactly where I was at. I had been in the secret place, and that's what gives me life. That is what gives me life in my spirit, in my mind, and my body. Yeah. So much came from that, and I just wanted to share that with you all. So whatever it is that gives you life, makes you feel more alive, maybe you know what it is, maybe you don't know what it is, but I would invite you to explore that, things that bring life back to you, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually. And, now when I think about longevity, it's not just about living longer, but it's about the life that I'm living now in the present moment, and what I'm doing to cultivate life within me and in those around me. So, yeah, the painting, you'll see it around soon, and my space has kind of changed a little bit. That was also part of like movement, life, connecting, and I hope this brought you a little bit of joy, sewed a little piece of your heart back together if it felt like it was falling apart, brought a little bit of light to you if you felt in the dark, and maybe gave you a big hug if you feel like you needed one. And I will see you all soon. Bye.